Hi, this is Alan Maysiel. I'm here with Brian Dixon, who's the sales guy for NorCal Solar here in Petaluma.
Welcome to the Live Explore podcast. If you like what you hear, please hit like and subscribe.
Brian's a local guy here to tell us about the industry, where it's going, and to try and explain this net metering thing that everybody talks about and nobody understands. Welcome, Brian.
Thanks, Alan.
So tell me about the solar industry right now. Where do you think it's going? What's the upside? We'll get to net metering in a second, but just the general overlay of the industry.
Well, general overlay, it's definitely becoming a more competitive industry. I think we've seen prices in the panels, cost of panels come down. We've seen even the battery industry, which has been an expensive piece of the solar system, that's becoming more competitive. I would say 2 or 3 years ago, you just saw 2 or 3 companies that were creating batteries, and now just about every other company is coming out with their own battery backup system. And we're going to, when we talk about it, we're going to see that that's becoming a more important piece of the system. I would say in previous years, maybe, in Marin, Sonoma, Napa, maybe 30-40% of the people got a battery. That's probably going to reverse now, and we'll talk about why. I think there's always going to be a need for solar, with the prices of utilities going up, and just people wanting to be environmentally sound. There's always going to be a need for solar, or let's say people wanting to have the solar.
Right. So I spoke to you before we put it on our house, and you gave me some good insight.
Right.
So when we went and we had, do all the stuff with PG&E, you give it to them, and they say, here's what we think you need. Right. So we got this 14-panel system, and that was about $18,000, 17 and some change. And then I asked about batteries. Not enough battery power to run the whole house, but to run most of it, not the hot tub, probably not the HVAC. Okay.
Right.
The batteries were more than the panel system.
Right.
And so it was like, maybe I don't need that
Right.
now. But I also found out, and this ties, so I'm going to get to you on the battery costs, because you talked about, the competitiveness of it, and usually that drives it down. And then also the net metering, because they told us if you want to add batteries later, it won't affect your net metering rate.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about batteries. Okay, getting competitive. What do you think is going to happen?
I do think the level of pricings, just because of the nature of the competitiveness, is going to come down. Like I said, 2 or 3 years ago, you had LG, you had Tesla, and maybe another one or other. Now you have Enphase, which people know Enphase started in Petaluma. Their thing is microinverters, but now they have their own battery. I could give an example that last September, I quoted someone on a fairly good-sized battery. We were quoting $25,000 for the battery. They just wanted to add a battery to their existing system. Today, that same battery would be about $18,000. Still high, but it was an improvement, just a competitive improvement that made that change. I think we'll probably see a little more of that as things go along, as more and more companies are trying. And because there's going to be, especially in California, there's going to be a higher demand for batteries as well, which will help with the pricing.
So was I foolish not taking the batteries, or is it maybe one of those things? Because the rolling brownouts was what we were looking at. We were thinking, okay, we'll have some backup on it, right?
Right.
And then we also heard, maybe you can do is set up the battery usage so that at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the batteries will kick on and run until, 9 or 10, right? Run some of the system, right?
Right.
So are batteries going to be a big deal, or is it just one of those things where people are going to go, the $18,000 for the panels was enough?
Yeah, batteries will be a big deal. You'll find with the new net billing, which we'll talk about. In a lot of cases, for it to make financial sense, you almost have to have a battery to make the financial sense. For you, in the net metering 2, you're basically using PG&E as your battery. You're basically, any extra you create during daylight is going to PG&E and earning a credit. It's basically a 1-for-1 credit. So every 1 kilowatt hour you give PG&E, you're going to get 1 kilowatt hour back at night when you need it. That doesn't work with the new net billing, which started April 15th. That's a whole different, the buyback's not 1-for-1, and we can get into more detail.
Let's do that.
And to answer your question, should you have got a battery, you can always add a battery and it won't affect your status as far as NEM, the 2.0. And if batteries are going to get more competitive and your main reason is just to be safety for blackouts, you can always add a battery down the road. It's more expensive if you do it that way, just because you don't have that economies. Hey, an installation's going on, we're going to add a battery as part of that. So it's can be a little more expensive, but the prices are probably coming down. So yeah, you could always, if you find that you're having 10 blackouts a year, you say, shoot, we should have got a battery. You can always add one later.
Okay, let's go to I'm going to be jumping all over because I'm not really sure the flow. Okay.
Right.
So you got net metering, right? If you could explain that, and then like you talked about, I get the 1-for-1, right? And so let's talk about that, right? And then there was a change to the net metering. They call it NEM 2 or NEM something. Okay, so let's explain the net metering first.
Okay, so they call it net metering 1.0, 2.0, NEM. So you're in the NEM 2.0, which basically ended April 14th, or that's when people had their last chance to get into the NEM 2.0. And then as of April 15th, people referred to it as NEM 3.0, but that's really not the official name. It's really called net billing. So with the net metering, the 2.0 you're generating energy during daylight and you're not using all of it. So any extra you're not using is gone to the grid. They're using it and they're giving you basically a 1-for-1 credit. So at night when you need energy and you're not producing it with your solar, you're using those credits. And then as we talked about earlier, you every 12 months there's a true up. So they're going to come back to you and say, hey, we gave you more than you gave us, so you owe us some money. Or in some cases it works out that, hey, you gave us more than we gave you, and we're going to find a way that you still don't get any money back from us. I've heard people that says, hey, it says they owe us $1,000, but they find a way that, no, they don't.
Okay.
So with the change to net billing, that it's no longer a 1-for-1 exchange. The rates change on an hourly basis and a monthly basis. At some points a day, it might be 3 cents, it might be 8 cents, it might be 0 cents that they're paying for your extra. So you're still getting money for your extra, but it's about 80% less than what you're getting.
Okay.
So then at night you're paying for, so you don't get that 1-for-1 like you're using the utility as a battery. So now instead of your electric bill going to zero, not necessarily zero, like in your case, you're not paying for your electric, but you're paying to stay on the grid. So you're paying $12, $15 a month to basically to stay on the grid. So in this case, maybe if you didn't wait until now to get it, your bill might be cut in half instead of down to zero, and then paying the $12. So the bill savings is lower just because you're not getting that 1-for-1 exchange.
Okay.
So this is where we talk about where it almost makes more sense to have a battery. So what people are doing is they generate their energy, and instead of their extra going off to the grid, their extra fills up the battery. So they're putting extra in the battery. Then at night they could either run their house off the battery, or you can actually take the energy in the battery and throw it out to the grid at the higher rates. Every webinar uses example of in September from 7 to 8 o'clock at night, they're paying you $2.30 for every extra kilowatt hour you send. So that's the special time, because usually it's 20 cents, 10 cents, 8 cents. So there's this, for whatever reason, 7 to 8 o'clock in September. Part of me thinks if there's a whole cul-de-sac, everyone has solar, they're going to blow up their transformer. It's because
Sending it back to them,
dumping in the grid at all the same time. But so that's why we talk about that. It's going to be the reverse of who has people getting batteries. Instead of 30%, it might be 70% of people are going to see that it makes sense to get a battery. And I think the whole industry, installers and manufacturers, are going to just have to get more competitive. I think installers may have to think, well, we're not going to make as much profit on the battery piece and need to be more competitive in that way, because I think there's just going to be a higher demand for that part of it.
Okay.
I think that may be explained in a little bit of a nutshell.
So the thing is, you really have to talk to somebody and have them explain your circumstance at that time.
Right.
Right. Because to talk to you now about something that I might do next year, the whole industry could change, right? The net metering could change.
The net billing is supposed to be set in stone for so many years, but we could be seeing net billing 1.5 come out, because there may be enough backlash. Even like we have an organization called CALSA, the California Storage and Solar and Storage Association, and they're always fighting the fight. We've done some rallies. So they're always in the background still trying to fight net billing, or at least the way it's set up. So yeah, things could change based on that, maybe for the better even.
Right, but energy rates never go down.
Yeah, your CPG, that's one thing we talk about solar. Is one thing with solar, and whether it's net billing or 2.0, you're fixing in your costs for energy, as opposed to PG&E. You know, they say it's an average of 4% increase a year. I've never seen 4%. It's usually 10% plus.
Right.
But one of the benefits of solar is you've locked in your cost for at least your electric piece.
Right, right. So panel cost now, are you seeing panel costs also starting to slide down? Are they manufacturing it in more areas around the world, or is it still kind of in a couple areas?
Yes. Next question. No.
That's good.
No, I think the pricing's become more. I mean, there's been issues when a lot of the panels were made in China and overseas, and there are things that made those prices go up, and there was the availability, and we're starting to see a lot more manufacturing happen in the U.S. There's companies like Mission, Silfab, but there's some others that are creating manufacturing pieces in the U.S. so you don't have that overseas issue as much. And just volume alone, the demand keeps getting higher and higher, so the same thing, the prices on the panels seem to be edging lower, at least.
Making it more affordable.
I mean, there was a period in the last year or so where we saw a bit of an increase in the whole overall panel pricing. But that was, every cars and everything, they're having issues with the chips, and we had the same issues with chips and all that too.
Okay. So if people were to call you, so first of all, how do we get a hold of you?
Best way, you can, my direct line, 707-861-0440. You can also look me up on Facebook, Solar Bry, not Guy, Solar Bry. I'm on Facebook, and you can I post some decent articles there about the solar industry and different.
And then how long, if I wanted to put a system up, right, and I called you and said, okay, come on over, we're ready to go, from the time that I call you, get you the paperwork, the PG&E, about how long does it take to get in? And I realize, depending on the load that your company has, it may be 2 months, 3 months, or 4 months, or longer. Roughly right now, how long is it taking to get somebody scheduled?
So 6 months, a year ago, it could take a month, 6 weeks. Now there was a big backlog that net billing that kicked in April 15th. There was a mass wave of people that wanted to get in by April 14th. We were doing till 11 o'clock at night on April 14th. We were still getting people, trying to get people in on the 2.0. So now we're seeing the result of that. The whole industry is seeing a result of that. Is that just a lot of installations, permits, installations. So this is a long way of answering your question. If you came in today, I might say you're installed 3 to 4 months.
Okay. All right.
And yeah, you said it depends on the complications. If someone comes in and said, "Oh yeah, my electrical panel needs to be replaced," or this needs to be done, of course that all adds to the time and process too.
Right. Now, if you have to have a panel changed, the electrical panel changed out, how much time roughly does that add? Roughly.
It might add a week or two, or it depends. It depends if it's being upgraded, if it's being completely changed, if you're going, if you're adding a whole span system or what, it depends on. But I would say it's time-wise, it's not adding a ton, but for us, it may need a specialist, meaning a lot of jobs we can have our general crew, but sometimes if we need one of our specialists to work on that may be the backlog, because he may be backlogged 2 weeks on doing specialty. Does that?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. There's another thing that you've done throughout your life, and that's coaching kids in racquetball. It's got nothing to do with solar, but it's got something to do with your lifestyle.
Right.
So give me some background.
Well, I started playing racquetball in Novato when I was 9 years old, yada yada years ago, at Rolling Hills Club in Novato. And in 1998, I started coaching. Actually, I was going to oversee 2 guys who were coaching, and I didn't like how they were coaching, so I replaced them and started coaching. And that was at Petaluma Valley Athletic Club, which I think at that time was called Rancho Arroyo, but became Petaluma Valley Athletic Club. And I did coaching there until 2018, which is when they closed their doors, basically, and now it's a storage facility. And so now I coach up in Rohnert Park. They have 2 courts at the community center. And I'm the junior director for California, Nevada, and also, as of last year, I'm kind of the Mikey of junior racquetball, if you know that reference. There's the cereal where, hey, Mikey will he'll do anything.
Yeah.
So I'm the chairman of the USA Junior Racquetball Committee.
Okay. So any kids that have come through the system that have gone on to some success?
There's been 4 kids who have had multiple national championships. Heather Mahoney probably sticks out. She's a 4-time world champion. She was the 10 and under, 12 and under, 14 and under singles, and the 14 and under doubles world champion. And then also Ava Noworski, she won the 10 and under world champions a few years. And her and Heather played last year at the high schools as a team, and they won the girls' championship at the high school nationals. And Heather last year was at the nationals won gold in singles, doubles, and mixed doubles. She was the gold in all 3, it says. And she's now off to UC Santa Barbara, and maybe gets on the court a little bit. I think she's probably enjoying the sun and beach a little more than the racquetball court. You
couldn't work out a full ride scholarship?
Yeah. Those used to exist. When I played way back when, there were full bore. Actually, there's a Sacramento connection. I went to Sacramento State, and when I was there, I wasn't playing racquetball at the time, but they actually had, there 3 years the collegiate champions, and they had full ride racquetball scholarships.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Well, listen, let's get back to solar real quick. If they need to call you to get a hold of you to ask you questions, what's the number? 707-861-0440. Perfect, Brian. Thank you for being on board. Look forward to having you come back in as the industry starts to move.
Yeah, definitely.
And then give us some updates.
Definitely.
You've been listening to the Live Better, Explore More podcast. Thank you.